There are times in life that break everything wide open. Occasionally, it's not a battle, not a cinematic meltdown, not even a talk. Occasionally, it's silence. A second so dense that no words can bear it. Garrison's funeral wasn't merely a goodbye. It was the moment this family's cavities became irrefutable. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah, you watch TLC's next updates. And not only to viewers, but to the individuals standing there too. You could sense it in the way they did not look at one another. You could see it in the way that they stood miles away, even when they were in feet of each other. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell because I assure you, we do not sugarcoat anything here. And I genuinely want to know what you felt watching that episode. So leave your thoughts in the comments because this wasn't another scene. It was a reckoning. Garrison's loss was heartbreaking, and yet, what happened at his funeral wasn't solely about sorrow. It became a highlight on every hurt this family never recovered from. Everyone came to bury a son, a brother, a loved one. But what was to be a moment of togetherness became something crystal clear. This family is broken. There was no hug between Cody and Janelle, no melting, no eye contact even. Christine kept her children close. Janelle leaned on her boys and Cody. Cody stood with Robin and her children like they were a different family altogether. Even Mary, who attended, was still outside the center. She wasn't with Janelle or Christine. She didn't appear invited into their circle. Leon stood with their siblings, and that, in and of itself, was a tale. And then, the lack of Garrison's brother, McKelty, and her husband, Tony, that was deafening in its own manner. This was not a funeral. This was a raw, uncensored picture of loss, betrayal, abandonment, and decades of silence finally making up for lost time. The rift in this family no longer existed as something solely emotional. It was there, physical and visible before all their eyes. And it was painful. This episode did not pull punches. It wasn't sensational. It did not have to be. What made it land so powerfully was how quietly it depicted the type of mourning that doesn't hurt. It divides people. What transpired was not a family assembled to remember one that loved them. It was a silent geography of who's still clinging, who's released, and who gave up entirely. And just trust me, it gets even more disturbing from here. Continue to watch because what the cameras picked up next says everything without a word being uttered. At the cemetery, the family was divided, literally. On one side were Cody and Robin, immaculately dressed, looking like they were off to church, their faces set, as if holding on to appearances was all they had left. Across from them were Janelle, Christine, their kids, and Mary, hovering in the background. There was a stark contrast in how they arrived. It wasn't subtle. It was obvious. Janelle and Christine's side was relaxed, warm, as if they were coming to mourn someone they really knew, someone they felt, someone they lost. It wasn't about clothes. It was about energy, the weight they bore on their faces. And you can bet your life that viewers picked up on it. The contrast had the feel of being symbolic. One side rigid, polished, and guarded. The other side broken-hearted, open, and unmistakably authentic. But the loudest thing in that whole scene wasn't something said. It was a silence, and not the serene, peaceful one. It was heavy, cold, and oppressive. A silence that created walls between people who had once known each other as family. No hugs between Cody and his other children. No quiet hellos. No touch on a shoulder. Not even a glance. Not even a nod. Everyone kept firmly in their own corners, and the distance between them seemed infinite. And the camera never averted its gaze. It stayed on those interminable, awkward moments. Janelle hugging her coat as if it were the only thing that was holding her to the ground. Christine hugging her children, holding them tighter, as if attempting to shield what was left of her family. One of Christine's children stood silently by her side, while Leon had their eyes cast down, standing alongside their siblings, weighed down with unspoken sentiment. And then Cody, serious but stony. Robin clung to her children, in silence, not once making a move toward the rest of the family. No mutual tears bridged those unseen boundaries, no gentle words, no apologies, not even a tentative look. And what hit the hardest was how predictable it all was. Like everyone there had already accepted that reconciliation wasn't coming. Not now, not here, And maybe not ever. But wait until you hear this part, because it's one of the most painfully telling moments of all. When the moment arrived, Janelle gave Cody the urn. No words were exchanged, no eye contact. It wasn't a moment of mutual sorrow. It felt like passing on a chore, a task to be completed. Cody buried the urn, and still, there was that gap between them. Nobody came forward, nobody bridged. It was as if two funerals were taking place in one location at the same moment, but on completely different emotional planes. And yet, amidst that frozen silence, one individual stepped quietly, softly over that chasm. Logan, the oldest son, the one who's always sought to keep the family together, did something nobody else did. He went up to Robin's kids and wrapped his arms around them in a soft, genuine hug. No melodrama, no grand performative act, just a small, loving gesture of human connection amidst so much division. And that one moment was louder than anything else that day. Logan was still trying, but nobody else took a step. Nobody else stepped over that line, not even in search of closure. And that's what hurt the most. Because if the passing of a son, a brother, a loved one couldn't get this family to come together, not even for 5 minutes, then what in the world could? No one on Cody and Robin's side made a step towards the others, and none of Janelle or Christine's kids seemed interested in closing that gap either. And to be honest, it's not difficult to see why. There's been too much harm, too many years of pain, abandonment, and dismissals. The reality is, this family isn't just broken anymore. They've gone past even pretending that it isn't. There was no public display of togetherness, no forced smiles for the photogs, only stark, undeniable distance. It was an unspoken reality exposed. This family is broken, and they're not repairing it. Not today. Not even for Garrison. You could sense it in the air, heavy and certain. Past the sorrow, past the mourning of a funeral, what really hung in there was a deeper pain that the siblings shared. The type of pain you carry not only from the loss of a brother, but from understanding the one thing that kept you all together is lost as well. Believing that you were still a family. The faces spoke volumes. Leon was in attendance. So was Maddie, Gabe, Hunter, Logan. Many of Christine's kids made it. And though McKelty and Tony weren't there, probably due to their relocation to North Carolina, their absence told the difference. It wasn't who was there, it was what their presence or lack thereof said. Any unspoken message during that time was significant, and this is where it quietly becomes even heavier. Leon standing with their brothers, not Mary, said everything. It wasn't a showy moment, but it was loud in its own. It illustrated exactly where they felt most at home, where devotion still existed. Even in bereavement, they remained close to Christine's and Janelle's kids. Maddie, Hunter, Gabe. They didn't say much, but they didn't have to. You could look at it in their eyes, in the way they stood, in the way they closed in protectively around Janelle. There was this silent sort of solidarity, a sorrow that seemed to be their own. And Logan, the oldest brother, always the soft-spoken peacekeeper, always bearing a burden no one else observes. He didn't say anything on camera. He didn't need to. His subtle, quiet movement, walking over to Robin's children and giving them a soft hug, was a flash of what this family once was. No grand speeches, no moment in the limelight. One person touching another. But this is the part that hurts most. Even that did not cross the threshold. No one else joined. None of the other children walked across that invisible boundary, and Robin's kids did not step towards them either. It was as if an implied rule had been established, and every one of them just nodded inwardly and kept to their side. No one keen to experience another heartbreak, no one courageous enough to dream of something more. But the one moment that cut to the core of everything was a quiet, candid exchange between Leon and Maddie. Maddie's statement was so plain, so naked, and yet it hit like a punch. I feel bad for Cody, but I feel really bad for Cody's kids. Not our brother, not our relatives, Cody's children. And in the use of those words, an entire history went unspoken. The distance wasn't just physical, it was in their hearts now too. Then Leon said something that stuck with me long after the episode ended. I just want to be able to speak to them, meaning Robin's kids. And it wasn't bitter. It wasn't resentful. It was longing. A simple, aching wish to reconnect, to have a conversation like they used to, before everything fell apart. But the truth of it, that they can't, that no one's called, that the silence hangs so heavy it feels like it will last forever, that hurts worse than any fight could. And here's where it gets really heartbreaking. Garrison's death did more than bring sorrow. It compelled these siblings, particularly the ones who as kids used to be inseparable, to confront what they've actually lost. Not only a brother, but the bond, the protection, the reassurance that no matter what, they were still one family. And you can tell in their faces. You can hear it in their voices. Leon's hurt was undeniable. Maddie's words had that weighty kind of sorrow you can't fake. These weren't individuals seeking more drama. These were individuals quietly asking themselves, how did we let it get this bad? And then, nothing. Nothing at all from Robin's kids. No feeling that the cameras recorded. No sideways glance at their brothers and sisters. No gesture. No commiseration. It wasn't silence. It was emotional distance. Utter, intentional distance. And of course, we don't know what has gone on behind closed doors. We don't know what they've been told, or what hurts they are hiding too. But here's what we do know. What we saw in plain sight was loneliness. Loneliness so palpable, it could be sensed from behind the screen. This wasn't merely a family grieving their loss. This was a family gradually acknowledging that their loss didn't just remove Garrison. It revealed everything they've lost along the way. What was most striking in all of this, perhaps even more than the glaring divide and oppressive silence, was who exactly came, not only in body, but in heart. Christine and Janelle didn't merely come to their son's funeral. They were there in every sense that counted. They huddled with their children in the midst of the sorrow, embracing them, sitting with them, never drawing away from the pain or avoiding the difficult times. They did not hide behind forced smiles or cold stares. They remained authentic, raw, and heartbreakingly attached. And this is where you could really feel it. Janelle's strength was not loud, but it was unquestionable. You could see her keeping it together for her boys, despite the fact that losing Garrison was obviously shattering her heart. Gabe, Hunter, and Logan hardly left her side. It was not entirely about grieving their brother. You could sense they were there to guard their mom as well. That sort of intimacy is not developed overnight. It is a result of decades of trust, loyalty, and love, the kind that occurs whether cameras are present or not. And then, of course, there was Christine. She was solid, a taciturn pillar for her own kids, but also for Janelle. The manner in which those two women supported each other shouted louder than words ever could. This wasn't merely about loss shared. It was about a lifetime of struggles, triumphs, and broken hearts shared. They weren't just ex-co-wives. They were family, chosen family, the kind that lingers when all else is gone. And then, in the background quietly, was David, Christine's new husband. If anyone still had any doubts about his role in this family structure, this episode dispelled that doubt. He did not attempt to make it all about him. He did not insert himself for attention. But he was present, calm, steady, there. You could observe the children respected him. There was ease to the way he worked in those hard times, a kindness in the way he hung around with Christine without taking over her grieving. He didn't attempt to substitute Garrison. He wasn't there to fill a space. He was just there. And sometimes, that is all. David did not attempt to substitute Garrison's father role, but he appeared in a way Cody did not. And that brings us to Cody. Yes, he did cry. He uttered the words we all knew he would utter. But his entire grief seemed removed, separated, even staged. He buried his son and cradled the urn. But when it came to reaching out to his other kids, the ones who had lost a brother too, he didn't even bother. No handshake, no look, no word. Loss has the tendency to strip away all of it. Ego, fronts, the masks individuals wear. It lays bare the person they truly are. And at this point, Cody's loss was less about real sorrow and more about a speech, an act for the cameras. It was as if he mourned the concept of Garrison, not the son that had lost touch with him years earlier than his death. As he took the urn from Janelle, that act spoke volumes. No hug, no locked eye, only a silent, chilled handover. She delivered to him the remains of the son they had brought up together, and he poured them into the earth. It was a last act, not only for Garrison, but perhaps for whatever relationship they shared once. It was impossible not to notice the way Cody hung around Robin and her children. never crossing that emotional barrier to hug the rest of them. In his speech at the service, you could see the other kids with heads down, eyes averted, as if they didn't believe for a second what he was telling them. It was as if they viewed his sorrow as an act, something he was doing for the cameras. No hint of remorse from Cody. No attempt at mending the severed connections. And truly, that is the most difficult thing to witness. Because when the cameras no longer roll, when the funeral service has ended, what remains isn't the eulogies or the things spoken out loud. It's the quiet that follows in its absence. You'd expect that in a moment like this, laying a son to rest, all the old fights, the grudges, the years of quiet resentment would melt away. You'd imagine there'd be hugs, tears shared across those deep fractures, people finally saying, "None of this matters anymore." But that moment never came. Not at the funeral. Not at the graveside. Not even for Garrison. Instead, the rift was as stark as ever. Two sides, two vastly different worlds. Cody and Robin were on one side of it, stiff and immaculately assembled, as if they were present at a photo shoot session instead of a family grieving. On the other side were Christine, Janelle, Mary, and their children, divided and alone, grieving not only a brother, but a type that once united them all. This wasn't grieving. It was grieving across a canyon, with no hand to reach out and construct a bridge. No eye contact, no tears shared, no comforting touch, no embracing between Cody and his older children, no crossing of the emotional lines drawn and redrawn for years, just a crushing silence. And it wasn't that silence which heals. It was the one which clamps down on you, becomes weightier with each passing second, and burrows deep into your bones. And then there was the sermon. Tim, Cody's brother-in-law, stepped up to the microphone, and for a moment it seemed like there could be a spark of hope. His words were sincere, full of understanding. He spoke of the hurt of a grieving mother, of the healing that was needed, and of the strength of forgiveness. And then there was the sermon from Cody's brother-in-law, Tim. At first, it sounded like hope. It was all about the hurt of a mother's sorrow, the desperate need for healing, and the healing power of forgiveness to repair damaged relationships. You could almost sense a spark of something real, something raw. But then, everything changed. Tim uttered something that didn't quite sit well. No one will understand the remorse of a father. And there it was, right in front of many of us viewers, cold reality slapped in the face. This wasn't about the family anymore. It was damage control. Was that line meant to soften Cody's image? To hint at some hidden regret lurking behind his distant exterior? Because if it was, we didn't see it. Not at the funeral. Not in his actions. He never crossed the invisible line that divided him from his other children, the ones who needed him the most. Even at his own son's funeral, Cody couldn't look in the eyes of his other bereaved children. And Robin? She was nearly invisible throughout the entire ordeal. Scarcely a word, hardly a tear, and zero emotional attachment expressed towards Garrison's siblings. She appeared to be a guest at someone else's tragedy. Perhaps that is the true tragedy. Rather than attempt to reunite the family, she remained aloof, uncommunicative, just as always. The children from her union with Cody did not speak to their half-siblings. No hugs, no greeting, just a chill emotional wall shut tight. No bridge. Two worlds apart refusing to reconcile, even in death. And I find myself returning to this moment over and over. If there ever was a moment to stand up, to end the silence, to act with love rather than pride, this was it. One word of solace, that's all it would have taken. But instead, there was silence. What type of family, having endured all that they've been through, opts for distance rather than relationship in their hour of need? The bitter truth is this. There was no healing, no closure, no reconciliation. Only a wider, deeper chasm than ever before. Now, I'd love to hear from you because I know I'm not the only one who felt this. Was this moment, was it moved you? Was it infuriating you? What struck you most about the way this family walked through their worst loss? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I truly want to hear what you have to say. And don't forget to subscribe to TLC's next updates for more raw, uncut stories. Thanks for hanging in with me on this.